Okay, we're live. Purdue wins a 96-67 blowout of the Bellarmine Knights in their season opening game. Nothing. Your highest expectations, I don't think, could have been higher than this game. It was a showcase by Purdue offensively, an absolute clinic by Purdue offensively. Purdue, this is the peak of what Purdue's offense can be. Two bigs who command so much attention that the defense is forced to leave the perimeter shooters that Purdue has. And the question in the offseason was, does Purdue have those perimeter shooters? Tonight was an emphatic yes to that question. On a night when Jaden Ivey really struggled from three, I believe he ended. I need to pull up the box score, but Jaden Ivey really struggled from three. Travion Williams may not have even had a basket tonight, and yet Purdue dominated this game simply because they made shots and they shared the ball. It's pretty simple stuff, but look, we haven't seen that. We didn't see it against UIndy. We saw it a little bit, but we didn't see this kind of offensive explosion that we saw tonight. I've got the box score in front of me now. Jaden Ivey, 1 of 5 from 3. He didn't have his best night, and we'll get to him a little bit later. We'll talk through everything. The offense is the story for Purdue tonight, putting up 96 against a decent Bellarmine team. They're nothing special, particularly defensively. But Purdue was 16 of 36 from 3. They were 24 of 29 from the line. Both of those numbers, I think Matt Painter will be happy with. I think the fans, etc., will be happy with. But, still a lot of stuff to work on. Purdue did give up 67 points. A lot of that was kind of at the end. They started a bit slow again, which, jitters. A lot of them haven't played Mackey. I think individually, of course, there is stuff that Purdue can work on. But overall, how can you not be happy with this performance? Particularly on a night when, look, some other Big Ten rivals really struggled with not great teams. Ohio State escaping Ohio State escaping Akron by the skin of their teeth. And then you had Indiana winning by 2 over Eastern Michigan. So, look, it was a great night for Purdue. Just kind of a celebration all night long with the way the threes were raining in. And it was impressive to watch. And so we'll get to some of the individual stuff in a second here. But I just thought the way they shared the ball, the unselfishness of a guy like a Travion Williams who plays 15 minutes, he scores 2 points, and he's more than happy to dish the ball to his teammates. He scored 4 points, made 2 free throws at the end. That's pretty darn good. Look, we were talking all offseason about, will Travion get the time? Will Edey get the time? They seemed to share it tonight. Edey played 22 minutes, Travion 15, and they shared it extremely well. And so I think this is one where you just have to trust Coach Painter. You have to trust him to figure this situation out. And I think Coach Painter is well equipped to do it. Obviously, that's not a hot take by any means. But I was just so impressed with the shooting, with the ball movement from Purdue tonight. So let's get into a few of these individual players. And if you're joining, throw any questions, comments in the chat, and I'll look at them and answer them. So let's start with the starting lineup. Isaiah Thompson, starting point guard tonight, 15 points, all on threes. And I think we saw tonight kind of the Isaiah Thompson that we're going to be seeing all season, and the reason why Isaiah Thompson was inserted into the starting lineup for Eric Hunter Jr., which is the starting point guard for Purdue this year is essentially a shooting guard, is essentially a wing. Painter talked about it yesterday where, look, they want to play Ivy on the ball. They're going to do that a lot. I'm interested to rewatch and see how often they did that. I felt like it was a lot. And he's going to be the de facto point guard. So whoever's in there with him playing point guard needs to be able to shoot the ball. And you saw the value that Thompson brings tonight, shooting the basketball. 5 of 8 from 3. Had 4 of those in the first half. Big shots that were created by others. And the one thing Thompson does, maybe better than anyone else other than Stefanovic or Newman on this team, is he knocks down the open catch and shoot 3. He did that tonight. And I think that's why he was in the starting lineup. We'll see if that happens going forward. But with Ivy on the ball, running the point and making the decisions, you're going to see more and more of Thompson and maybe Hunter if he can shoot the ball like he did tonight. So let's talk Hunter, where he comes in off the bench, 2 of 6 from the field for 6 points. Now those were both threes. Those two, a couple of those were like late shot clock that you probably don't expect him to make. He kind of played off of everyone. He got downhill a few times, didn't really do much, didn't attempt a shot inside the paint, obviously. Played good defense. There was one awesome steal he had where he just jumped in front of a guy. I wrote it down here. I'm not exactly sure when that was, but he jumped in front of a guy and in the post and made a steal, and then they went the other way. So I thought Hunter did a nice job. I would be surprised if he gets thrown back into the starting lineup. I mean, Thompson played 24 minutes. He had 15 and 4. And of course, box score stats aren't everything, but just the spacing. Again, Painter talked about it the other day. It's the spacing that Isaiah Thompson provides that's going to get him playing time, because when you're playing with a Jaden Ivey, who again still has not shown the ability to space the floor, spacing's key. And I think Thompson does that really, really well, as we saw tonight. The other guys in the starting lineup, we'll save Ivy. I thought he struggled for most of the night. Edey just played off of others. 4 of 5, 16 points, 8 for 10. I mean, the guy ended up with 16 and 9. It's unbelievable. Zach Edey, just how he can just accumulate stats that for other people it just seems that they labor to get to 16 and 9. For Edey, it's no big deal. He literally took 5 shots, went 8 of 10 from the free throw line. The guy's a monster. If you told me this before the year, I don't know what I would have said, but he played 22 minutes tonight. I can't see him playing any less than that this year until he's just too dominant. He didn't even play that well tonight. He had his hands a couple times. Ball bounced off his hands. I felt like he could have done a much better job holding onto the ball. He had 3 turnovers, and yet 16 points, 9 rebounds, 4 or 5 from the field in 22 minutes. I mean, the production is just undeniable, and that's why he's going to be on the floor. It just is, and it's nothing against Travion, who played a great game, but there's a reason why Edey was in there and played 7 more minutes than Travion did, and that's because his dominance, it doesn't even matter that he's not that good of a passer. He is just that dominant, and guys can play off of him so easily. So Edey is just such a unique freak of nature, and he's going to continue, I think, to start. And I think it's the right decision. There's no qualms. They're both good. Sasha obviously was incredible tonight. He had the run where I think he made 3 straight threes. Just Sasha and Newman both. Sasha 5 of 6 from 3. Newman 3 of 9. Gosh, it felt like he was better than that, but those two guys put on an absolute clinic on how to move off the ball tonight, just running off curl screens, down screens. Stefanovic was running all around the court. He looked like Curry, the ability to move off ball, use those stagger screens that Purdue sets, use those pin downs that Purdue sets. you're going to get open looks. It's just a matter of whether they go in. For Sasha, they did tonight. Newman, a little bit less, 3 of 9, like I said, but still pretty darn good. And he had a couple that were big in the middle of that big second half run that they had. Both of those guys, look, I was actually listening to a podcast earlier today with a couple national media guys who said we're expressing some concerns with Purdue's shooting. And one of the guys was like, well, they have Ivy and Ivy's going to improve. Well, look, Ivy didn't improve tonight. He was 1 of 5 from 3. But let's be real. Stefanovic and Newman are 2 of the elite shooters in the country. I don't know why you would say that those 2 guys aren't elite shooters, aren't able to space the floor at a high level, because they absolutely are. And I think they're going to be doing that all season long. Sasha, this was as efficient as he gets, 6 of 8, 23 points, played 24 minutes, had a couple really nice entry passes to Edie that I thought that'll probably show up when I rewatch the game tonight. So Sasha was impressive. So was Newman. Those 2 guys are just going to play off each other, be the floor spacers, be the snipers for Purdue all season long. Well, let's get to Ivy. So 11 points, 4 of 11, 1 of 5 from 3, 2 of 3 from the line. Did have 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 4 turnovers. Played 25 minutes. Started the game all game long. I felt he looked a little off for some reason. It wasn't the shooting. It was just he was kind of going through the motions, it felt like. He had a couple kind of weird turnovers where he just hasn't shown an elite level handle thus far, which is fine. But that is a place where teams can kind of reach in and poke the ball away from him, and we saw that a few times tonight for Ivy. The 2 huge dunks, obviously had a huge two-handed dunk, a huge windmill dunk, coming off gambles that we know he loves to gamble. I don't love it. You know, it's risk reward. If he gets it, you're going to get a bring down the house kind of dunk. If he doesn't, the opponent's likely going to get a huge 3 or a basket at the rim. Tonight, I think he was 2 of 3 on gambles. Maybe I should start charting that as a stat for Ivy, gambles. Badly missed on one of them tonight, and I think Bellarmine got a basket. Then the other 2, obviously, he got huge dunks. Not his best night, like I said, from 3. Maybe gotten a little bit of his own head in the first half when I think one he kind of bricked, and then the next one he airballed, and but he kept shooting, and that's what I respect about Ivy, is just the confidence at all times. His confidence is sky high at all times, and it's just impressive. It really is, like, that someone can just keep firing after air balls, and he ended up making one, so to his credit. Kept playing, got the N1 in the second half. So I thought he was better in the second half. Came out in the first half, didn't love his game, but I did think he was pretty good defensively. A few possessions on Penn, one of Bellarmine's better play, really probably their best player. Ivy switched on to him, had a couple nice defensive possessions. So I wouldn't worry about Ivy. I think he's going to have nights like this, but he still ends up with 11, 5, and 4. You know, so his statistical floor is probably a game like tonight. I want to highlight Ethan Morton because I really thought he played well tonight. You kind of see, and I haven't touched on it yet, but the news that Trey Kaufman will redshirt. You kind of see why that might be the case, why he might be interested in doing that, why the coaching staff might be interested in having Trey redshirt, because of Morton's emergence and his ability to play the 4 or the de facto 4, right? I mean, he's a wing or even a point guard, but he's tall enough at 6'6", 6'7" that he can be out there with 3 other guards and then one of the 2 bigs. And man, I thought tonight he just competed on defense, got a couple steals, some really key passes. You just see why Painter's always raved about him as a passer. And with Morton out there and Kaufman redshirting, it's just a situation where now at all times you have 5 guys who don't have to learn the offense, who are comfortable playing with each other and aren't going to make rookie mistakes. And yes, I do include Caleb First in that group, who we haven't talked about, but he looks like a vet. He looks like a seasoned vet. So you have 5 guys at all times now who can share the basketball, who are comfortable with their defensive assignments, making the right play. And I think really the even the 5 to 10 minutes it would have been a game with Kaufman Wren out there, he did look a little lost. He looked like he was still transitioning, learning some of the defensive rules, the offensive playbook, which is notoriously huge at Purdue. So I totally understand the decision to redshirt him. And what you saw when Morton was in there tonight was just better ball movement, more cohesiveness. He ended up playing 18 minutes. I thought he was great on defense, great on offense. Really impressed by Ethan Morton. Really one of the more impressive performances tonight, despite only scoring 5 points. I really liked what I saw out of him. Let's talk first. So 2 points, 9 rebounds. Played the most minutes of anybody in his first ever official game at Mackey Arena. Pretty impressive. The guy just plays so well off of others. He did it in high school at Blackhawk. He was nearly a 5-star recruit who wasn't demanding the ball. If you watch his film, he's playing with 4 guys who look like me, and he wasn't demanding the ball. He wasn't screaming at them to get the ball. He didn't care that he was a 5-star, nearly a recruit. He just played. He played off of those guys, got easy buckets, got putbacks when he needed them, and he's going to do the same thing at Purdue for 4 years, 5 years maybe. I guess 4 because he's not going to redshirt. But boy, is he going to be a good player, and I just love what he brings. He had the one great offensive rebound off the missed free throw by Ivy. I love that. The 9 rebounds, tied with Edey, led the team. The guy's just going to be productive. He's going to do the right thing. And look, he already looks like a seasoned vet. He does. I mean, he looks, when you watched Kaufman Wren last Thursday versus watching First last Thursday and tonight, it is night and day. I mean, First is always in the right spot. Look, he's not the most mobile. He's not the most athletically talented, whatever it may be. But boy, is he always in the right spot. And I think Purdue has a real gem on their hands with Caleb First. I loved his game tonight. 2 points. It doesn't matter. He impacts the game in all kinds of different ways. And I'm eager to go back and watch the film, see how he did defensively, because that's kind of hard to pick up on the broadcast. But I did think, look, he didn't have any glaring mistakes. Travion Williams, just give a hand because, man, was he good. I mean, the 4 points, who cares? I mean, there was all this talk about, will Travion be willing to sacrifice for the good of the team? And the answer is a resounding yes after tonight. Travion, just 4 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, only played 15 minutes. I just can't say enough about this guy's sacrifice, this guy's selflessness. I mean, look, he's an All-American coming off the bench because of this sophomore kid who picked up a basketball 4 years ago for the first time. He's now starting over you. You're an All-American who averaged 15 and 10 last year with a 30% usage rate. And you're willing to come off the bench and score 4 points, play only 15 minutes, and make a massive impact on the game when you were out there? I mean, it's just awesome. It's why Travion's going to go down as a Purdue legend. And maybe he will start some games this year due to injury or whatnot. Maybe Edey has a cold stretch and we have the luxury of having an All-American off the bench who you could throw in there for Edey. But man, Travion just so impressed with his mentality, his maturity tonight. You just can't say enough about the guy. I really, really was impressed by everything he brought to the table tonight. He was still out there hustling. He tracked down that loose ball, saved it to Newman for a 3. I mean, he looked like a guy fighting for his job. Really, he is. And maybe that's going to be the story of this team, is just 10 guys who would start at the most other programs in the country battling it out and getting the best out of each other because they're all so talented and because they're fighting for minutes, right? Nobody played over 26 minutes tonight. Even Ivy, who struggled. And, he's going to be having he's going to be looking over his shoulder at Brandon Newman sitting there on the bench, at Eric Hunter sitting there on the bench, at Ethan Morton going, hey, you better play well or you're coming out. Now, some guys, that message doesn't feel great. That makes them kind of press. That makes them start to tighten up a little bit. For this Purdue team, well, the jury's still out, but man, when they get Gillis back, they're gonna have 10 guys who could start on most programs in the country, and with those guys battling it out for minutes, man, it could be a pretty interesting rotation here, and I thought Painter did a nice job tonight. Concerns after tonight, maybe just that all the threes going down masked what I thought were a couple possessions that were a bit stagnant offensively. What happens if only half those threes that they made go in and you go, 8 of 36. You like having the night where all the threes go down coincide with the night that Ivy struggled, right? That is really nice for Purdue. There will be nights where probably Ivy struggles and the threes from Sasha and Newman and Thompson aren't going down, and then, you're going to have to figure it out. But, man, could you ask for a better opening performance by this Purdue team, especially, as I mentioned earlier, on a night where Ohio State escapes Akron, who was rated similarly to Bellarmine and Kempom, and then IU beats Eastern Michigan, who was, I think, 297th in Kempom by a score of 2 points at home in the first game of the Mike Woodson era. It's a home run night for Purdue. I can't say enough about how good this team looked. I wasn't sure what to expect, quite frankly. There's a lot of talk about this Bellarmine offense, this unique, they only cut, they don't dribble, they're extremely efficient. They were last year offensively. And Purdue said, okay, we're going to go 16 of 36 from 3. We're going to bring the house down at Mackey, and we're going to kind of really make a statement tonight about, okay, yeah, this is who we are. We're going to be one of the better offensive teams in the country. And it might not matter how we play defense. Are we going to have some breakdowns? Absolutely. They did tonight. Fleming, who, if you watched any Bellarmine last year, you'd know he was their best player, one of their best shooter, certainly not their best player, their best shooter. He made 4 of 9 threes, had 14 points. But look, Purdue said, you know what? You guys can score. You guys can make some incredibly difficult 3-point shots at times. We don't care. We're going to drop 96 on you, and we're going to win this game by 30 points. So just an unbelievably impressive win by Purdue. As I'm going to be doing these every night for whoever's watching. Looks like we have a few people watching. So I'd love for it to be, kind of interactive, me answering questions, just talking to everybody. But obviously this is the first one, so I'm not expecting, too much interaction. But certainly the goal would be for everyone to kind of chime in with their thoughts as we move along here in this exciting season. That's kind of all I got if nobody's going to put anything in the chat. But, boy, was it a fun first night, and I'm really looking forward to diving into the rewatch and finally getting some real 2022 games to base what we think about Purdue and what kind of our impressions are of this team and these players. Looking forward to actually now having some real film rather than all the stuff last year, and it's all projection. And now we got a little film to work with. We've seen some of these guys in action. The Kaufman Wren news, which I haven't really dove too deep into, but I did see that he was redshirting. Certainly surprised me, as I'm sure it did many Purdue fans. Third highest ranked recruit ever at Purdue, and he's redshirting. But I just think it kind of speaks to how different of a culture Matt Painter has than most in this country right now. The emphasis he puts on player development, player retention, and just sticking with his guys. If you're willing to get better, if you don't want to bolt for the transfer portal, they will give you every opportunity, and by they I mean this staff and Matt Painter, to improve and to make your mark as a Purdue Boilermaker. And I think for Trey Kaufman, a guy who had a bad injury in the summer, who came in, looked a little lost in the UND game, at least defensively, whose shots weren't falling, who is in a crowded front court, right, with Mason Gillis returning in just a few days after the Indiana State game. I think it's a good move for Trey. I do. It's a smart move. It will let him, the point I made on Twitter, which is basically that he's going to be able to now transition to the wing. And there's been a lot of talk that I've read, not saying that I've heard this, I've read it, that Kaufman maybe fancied himself as a bit of a wing, a big wing kind of guy. And I think now if that's the case, he can make that transition, with the staff's blessing, with the coaching staff's blessing, with that redshirt year and next year come in maybe looking to get minutes at the 3, looking to get kind of that 3-4 hybrid that he thinks he can be. And maybe, everybody wants to be a wing, I guess, but certainly Kaufman has expressed that in the past. So he can probably become that over the course of this year, and I'm sure they will have a program for him. Does seem like, this wasn't planned, obviously, or they would have announced it when they announced the Waddell one, but certainly Kaufman is making a good decision for himself. And it's not a bad one. All right, I think that's all I got. If nobody's got anything in the chat, again, I will be doing these after every game, so please tune in, tell your friends, whatever. Want to get as many people in here right after the game as possible, as much interaction as possible. I know we don't have anybody in the chat tonight, but that's all right. We're gonna keep going here, and if you want to put something in the chat, that's fine. If not, that's also fine. But we want to kind of provide a place for us fans to hang out after we watch these games and just kind of talk about it. And so it's what I just did. Follow me on Twitter at Aiden Kunst. Subscribe to the Boiler Basketball Breakdown newsletter on Substack. I will have something out tomorrow morning on there. It'll be the morning after every game, and then there will probably be some periodic newsletters in between games, especially the ones where there's like a week break. I'll certainly do some deep dives. I'm looking to get the podcast going a little bit too. There's a kind of a podcast attached to the newsletter where I've had a couple media guys on, looking to have some recruits. Dre Gibbs-Lawhorn, who's the 4-star out of Utah, he'll be coming on there in a few days. So please check that out. If you liked what you heard, tell a friend. Again, just really encouraging game by Purdue. Really looking forward to this season. 96-67, Purdue over Bellarmine. Thank you guys for watching, and Boiler up.